Aitu Fafine is a new play opening at Kumu Kahua Theatre tonight. It focuses on the life of acclaimed writer Robert Louis Stevenson and his family in Vailima, Samoa. Stevenson is best known for the classic novel Treasure Island. He moved to Samoa in 1890 and died there 4 years later. The play was written by celebrated local playwright Victoria Nalani Kneubuhl and weaves together themes of relationships and the supernatural while examining the portrayal of women in literature. It's directed by Lurana OʻMalley, professor of theater at the University of Hawaiʻi at Manoa. She sat down with the Conversation's Russel Subiono in our studio to talk about the production.
My dear Colvin, the most remarkable thing happened to me yesterday. There is something deliriously fine about keeping a secret, but also about confessing one. And I know you've heard me go on and on about our supposed Aitu Fafine here at Vailima, our beautiful, irresistible resident lady ghost who kills by attracting and then putting her victims into a slow, fatal sleep.
Yeah, it has to do with Stevenson, his wife, her two children, so sort of his stepkids, and they're in Samoa. It's all true, but then what Victoria makes up is these two visitors who are the Samoan characters, and there's kind of like attraction to them, but then they all start to get into debates, particularly about women's literature and the portrayal of women. In the middle of the whole thing, Robert Louis Stevenson's nanny from Scotland appears and then creates these, what she calls bogey tales, like scary bedtime stories.
Okay.
And they're all about these vengeful women characters, ghosts who haunt and take vengeance. So those are happening throughout. The debates are happening, the love interests are happening, and then, then it all kind of comes together in this miraculous way.
Yeah. Sounds like a recipe for some very interesting conversations.
Yes.
All right. And like you mentioned, the fictional story features famed writer Robert Louis Stevenson, probably best known for Treasure Island, right? Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I've read that the play will give literary fans a glimpse into his eccentric, talented family, and I imagine that all novelists must come from colorful families. Can you expound on his family?
Yeah, and so he met Fanny Stevenson. She's about 10 years older than him, and he met her in sort of an artist colony, and they got married. She'd been married before, and so she had these two children that appear in the play, Belle and Lloyd. They all end up together in Samoa right toward the end of Stevenson's life. He was in ill health his entire life. He had bronchial problems. He died very young at the age of 44. And those last years he spends in Samoa, builds a big house there, interacts actually with local politics. And his wife is also a writer. Both children are writers. They do drawings, paintings. In the play, they're sort of acting out things. So there's just a vibrant kind of artistic life going on.
And like you mentioned before, there's like a supernatural aspect to it. You've got some, what sounds to be like some very colorful, interesting characters as well, right?
Yeah. So one thing for me as a director was to secure a really strong cast. It's a 7-person cast, ensemble cast. They're all in and out constantly. There's something like 40 scenes in the play. So they're just like coming on stage, off stage, and then they'll act out these tales. So they're throwing on masks and costumes.
And the mistress of the house, who thought herself ever so fine, was always calling on Kitty to use her powers. Kitty Ranky, where be thee, woman?
Pardon, madam. I did not hear the call.
Now, Kitty Ranky, I want you to be asking your spirits, what's become of my fine pearl necklace?
Oh, madam, they are looking. They say you shall find the necklace on the floor of the wardrobe, underneath your soft silk shawl.
Now, Kitty Ranky, ask your spirits, what's become of the fine new pony brought home for our bairns?
Oh, madam, this little pony, they say, has run to the hill in the eastern vale, and there he be eating in the fine tall grasses.
Oh, but one day, the mistress asked a terrible question. Now, Kitty Ranky, Ask your spirits, where's my husband? And why is he so many days late in returning to our home?
Oh. Forgive me, madam, they cannot see.
I say, tell me, Pete, or you shall go without food and water.
Oh no, mistress. Do not ask me, for they say no good will come of it.
I say, tell me what they see, Kitty, or you shall suffer.
So just really pushing them to their limits. And I have to say, Honolulu came through for me. I have an amazing cast of 7, some of whom have never performed at the theater before. Some are more veteran.
This idea that such an acclaimed writer like Robert Louis Stevenson moving to Polynesia, to Samoa specifically, I thought that was a pretty interesting place to start a story, and maybe a part of his life that maybe not so many people know about. What do you know about the time that he spent there?
Yeah, well, he's definitely what we would call today a settler, right? He's from another culture, but because he was from Scotland and he was essentially, a leftist socialist and had that background of seeing the kinds of things that had happened in Scotland with the suppression of the Scottish culture, that he was immediately sensitive to what was happening and, became involved, wrote up a history of what was happening, both with kind of clan battles there in Samoa, but also, he could see on the horizon what might happen with colonization and was doing what he could to try to prevent it, to write about it as well. So he was deeply appreciative of the culture, and it seems like, there was a lot of appreciation for him there. I have not been there to see Vailima, which is his home, but it's still preserved now as the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum there in Samoa, and there's quite a bit of affection, at least among some people, for what he accomplished there and what he meant.
When Victoria Nalani Kneubuhl was writing the play, do you know why she chose to focus on Stevenson as the center of her play?
Yeah, I mean, she talked to me about it. She had always had in mind to do something about Stevenson, and in fact had many years ago started this play and then just couldn't quite make it work. And then it was really her COVID play. She had some time and some isolation that she needed, and it flowed out, as according to what she said about it.
My first thought was that I'd seen the Aitu Fafine.
Did you say Aitu Fafine?
Did I?
I don't think she's your type at all.
Why is that?
Because Susitara likes women that are more original.
You know me.
Everyone in up here knows Robert Louis Stevenson.
Well, go on, lass. About the women. Please, you have my full attention.
Well, you seem to like women who have inner strength, who defy convention. Brave women like Fanny.
Like Fanny?
Not like the women in your stories. They're a little wooden.
How is it I've never met you?
I'm Vaimanu.
You know all the Apakasi families in Akia, and I'm sure I've never seen you before.
I'm just visiting my mother's aina.
That she's just always been fascinated with him and his family. She has both Hawaiian and Samoan culture in her background. I think she is always fascinated with that, what is the connection between different cultures. And that's very present in the play because we have the characters who are from the Stevenson, and we have the Afakasi characters. It's been fascinating for me as a director because it's something we try to work into the design as well. We're replicating a particular famous room from the home in Samoa called Vailima, and this wall has such a conglomeration of sort of Samoan elements, Western elements. It's got a sword, it's got a Samoan war club. It's just such a mix. It is all that blend that I think fascinates her.
And speaking of mix, and we've both mentioned before that the play has some interesting characters. The play has a supernatural kind of spooky element to it. But you've also been quoted as saying that Aitu Fafine addresses ways in which women are vilified in society for their sexuality, intelligence, and freedoms. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think if you look back at the career of Victoria Nalani Kneubuhl, she's centering women in what she writes about in almost everything she does. Conversion of Kahahumanu, Emelehua, story of Susanna. Again and again, she returns to looking at the position of women in society, and this is no different. One of the particular debates in the play is whether a writer who might portray women characters in a certain way might actually then affect people's perception of them and the perception of the gender. So there's a lot of debate amongst everyone in the play.
We read your stories, Susatalo, and we have long discussions with her.
Oh, and what do you discuss?
And we always discuss the women.
The women.
She says we should pay attention to what people write about us in novels.
What a marvelous idea.
A fascinating idea.
Why would you want to pay attention to the women?
Because people believe what they read in novels about groups of people.
What are you saying?
What does Othello say about the Moors, or The Merchant of Venice about the Jew? Don't people believe that?
Perhaps it's true. Well, in a general way, I mean.
See, people write things about groups of people over and over again, and readers believe them.
And your aunt supposes that women are one of these groups?
Yes.
And what does she say about my women?
Well,
Oh, go on, lass, don't be shy.
she says they're mostly non-persons, not whole characters like the men.
And then when the nanny tells these spooky stories, there's almost always a woman who's the villain in the story. For example, she actually tells the story of the character of Medea, who will briefly appear in the play. And so, a woman who maybe her side of the story hasn't been heard but has been vilified. So she's looking at that issue really throughout the play.
The play's writer, we've talked about it before, Victoria Nalani Kneubuhl, she's received the Hawaiʻi Award for Literature, the highest honor the state bestows on a writer. What is it about her ability to translate how she sees the world onto the stage that makes such an impact on audiences?
Yeah, what a great question. I'm just a huge fan. And, what I see in what she does, she mixes a lot of things. She has poetry, she has humor, she has what I would call theatricality. And so it's that blend, and just kind of then add on to that the sensitivity of culture, and then just being a great storyteller in her own right. This play is full of storytellers, whether it's Stevenson, whether it's the nanny, and then there's stories from the Afakasi characters. So they're all, in one way, sort of a part of her character, I think.
Can you share with the audience the show's performance details?
Sure. So we open January 25th, and it's easy to remember we close February 25th. So it runs 4 weekends, Thursday, Fridays, Saturday nights at 7, Sundays at 2, with no Super Bowl performance.
Okay. Yeah, always got to be aware of the Super Bowl.
Give it
right?
up.
Yeah. Lorena, thank you so much for coming into the station. Really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, nice to talk to you, Russell.
That was UH Professor of Theater Lurana OʻMalley talking to HPR's Russel Subiono. O'Malley is directing the new Victoria Nalani Kneubuhl play called Aitu Fafine, opening tonight at Kumu Kahua Theatre. Go to the conversation page of our website for a link to more information.